I'm practicing. Except I don't want to butcher it. How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today I have with me Declan Shalvey. Shalvey. Got it. Back. So yeah, how's it going, brother?
Good. Umar. Oh no, I'm trying to deliver your name wrong.
Well played.
Yeah, good, very good. Can't complain, man. All's well. I'm very, very, very busy, so I may have a kind of a dazed, frantic expression the whole time. But it's all an amazing, cool stuff, so I can't complain.
I can't imagine why you would be busy. It's not like you're writing and drawing several books with deadlines or anything like that. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, you say yes, and then you realize what it means, and you don't talk to anybody or have a life for a few months. But I know, I'm very fortunate. I've always been fairly busy, so I really, really can't complain. And like everything I'm doing is just like really cool. If one of my jobs was my only job, I'd be happy. So multiply that by 4.
Well, what have you been enjoying more though? I know when I had you on, it was right before the first issue of Thundercats had come out, and now you've gotten a little more under your belt, and you're going to be writing the. Golly, I'll let you talk about it. What is the next thing that's coming out from Dynamite?
Well, in order, the next thing I have is an Old Dog anthology, which is an anthology based out of the Image book I've been working on last year, and then after that is Terminator issue 1. With Luke Sparrow, and then the week after that is Mystique issue 1 that I'm writing and drawing, and then 2 weeks after that is like a Moon Knight story that I created, a new Moon Knight for Marvel.
Oh, I didn't know there was going to be a new Moon Knight. Okay, where's that going?
It's an anthology called Phases of the Moon Knight, where it's 2 15-page stories an issue, and the issue 2, Jed MacKay and Jorge Fornes have a story, and then I have a story with Eder Messias, where I created basically a future Moon Knight, and I designed the costume and everything. And that same day, Time Before Time Volume 6 is out.
Do you sleep? Have you been sleeping?
Not
brother?
Really. No, not really.
No, not really.
Well, the anthology is finished as of this week. That's off at the printer. Like that would be off at the printer now. And the Moon Knight book is done. So now I'm down to 3 books. I'm writing 3 books and drawing 1. I'm down to that.
What do you enjoy more, writing or drawing these days?
Well, I like writing and drawing. I like drawing the stuff that I write, if that makes sense. I mean, I really like writing for artists. That's really, really enjoyable, as long as you have like a good kind of visual kind of sensibilities and things are clicking is great. So like working with Drew Moss on Thundercats. Oh yeah, because I'm also doing Thundercats every month. Sorry, I knew there was something.
You didn't include that one.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest book I'm working on. I just thought I'd.
That broke all kinds of records at Dynamite. It did.
It did. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure when we were talking if I knew. Yeah, I think we probably knew it at the time.
Yeah, we knew the pre-orders were good. And they were basing the numbers based on how many of the pre-orders had gone. And then when they announced all of the variant covers is when it was announced it was the #1 ordered book from Dynamite. So congratulations, man. That's really cool, dude.
Thanks, man. I mean, I'm not sure if we talked about it at the time, but I definitely looked into it because I mean now I can say, because at the time I couldn't say, I was working on Mystique. I was writing and drawing that at the time, but it wasn't public. And my plan was take a break on Old Dog and work on Mystique 2024 and then go back to Old Dog, because they're kind of similar books, and maybe, bucket list of working on an X-Men book might help my career around. That was my plan. But at the end of 2023 was when Thundercats came up, and I'm like, okay. And the plan was it be for a year. It was just going to be like 12 issues basically. Because, they didn't know how it would do and be like a cool license book, and it'd be a great project to work on. So I'm like, yeah, that'd be a cool thing to do. But then it's completely blown up, and it's a whole other.
You might have something to do with that. You may have something to do with that.
I mean, something, but I mean, I think realistically, it's that there was a lot of of comics readers who, may have been reading X-Men and whatever else for years and kind of fell off the wagon a bit. But with Thundercats, it kind of gave. This is my theory now. This might be complete nonsense, but I think that if you're getting sick of the regular mainstream comics, Thundercats was enough of a license that didn't have 15 million books. It was it's still a fairly pure IP. It's the original cartoon. There's there was a reimagining. There were some comics, but I think it was pure enough that if you're an old school fan, you can come back to the thing that you knew. And if you were a new fan who you were aware of what it was, but didn't really, didn't get into it, it gave you a reason to get into the property, as it were. So I think those are factors I realize now, but I didn't realize at the time. I just thought it would be a successful licensed book, like, I don't know, like a regular Transformers or like a pre-whatever Transformers is now, I just thought it would be like a licensed book that like would be fun to work on, do something cool, and readers would enjoy, not what it turned out to be, which is like a massive seller and it's still selling strong. And now it's not a year-long book anymore, it's ongoing.
Yes, because the last time we talked, you thought that you had 12, you had two story arcs and had no idea that it was gonna keep going or not. I guess it depended on sales. So congratulations, man, that's huge.
Yeah, well, the sales made it very easy for Dynamite to decide to keep going.
Green light,
which is amazing because, like, not having a go with the mainstream, the big two or anything, but like, they're not really easy to get an ongoing. You kind of have to be a sure thing to know you have an ongoing. So most books, it's a mini series until we know it's selling well enough. And same with this. But I have managed to accidentally fall into writing an ongoing book, which is something I definitely wanted to do creatively. I just didn't know if that would happen in Marvel and DC, and now it's ended up happening at Dynamite with Thundercats, which is great because it's also such a huge world to it that like a year, 12 to 15 issues wouldn't have covered it. I mean, it would have done a reboot, and I would have been happy with that. But now, I mean, there's already a spin-off with Chitara, and there is more coming. I would give you the word Thunderverse, and make of that what you will. So that's something I'm working on at the moment. And which it's so cool. It's like getting to like do your own X-Men line, with more freedom and less complicated stuff going on. So it's sorry, I can't even remember the question now at this stage, but like Thundercats has just blown up into its own thing, which is hugely creatively satisfying. Like I mean, Drew are on fire, and there's all this cool stuff we can do now, because there is so much to that universe,
And there's also, I mean, let's not forget, it was so successful that it also got some spin-offs, which is great to see. That's what you want to see out of the Thunderverse, right?
Yeah,
calling it the Thunderverse, but that's
I know. Nate Cosby sent me Thunderverse like as a title in an email. I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want.
That's it.
But I mean, I can't say what's happening exactly, but like Chitara is a mini series, and when that ends, another title will come to replace it. And I have designed. It'll be a new character, and I've designed the character. I've done a cover for it, so that'll be a thing to look for in December, maybe. I'm not sure.
Now, when it comes to designing a character, is that part of you that's like, well, maybe I'd like to draw this if given enough time?
Yes, but I have to kind of just look at the reality of it, and I'm on Mystique till the end of the year. Like I can't.
Yeah, which by the way, as the
Mm-hmm.
Uncanny Omar, I have to talk about Mystique here in a minute, but I wanted to go back to Thundercats. So Thundercats has had a long history of having comics. It's the Star Comics, and then there was the Wildstorm era, which began the DC era. And it seems like whenever they were kicking those off, I mean, it's a little bit different, right? Because Star Comics was set during the time when the cartoon was coming out. And then we fast forward to the early aughts, and we start seeing the waves of these particular series that we grew up with in the 80s. I think back then, one of the things that happened, though, I don't think we were ready back then for it. I don't know if it was enough time distancing ourselves from what mid 80s, 85, 86, 87 or not. But now it's like we're craving it. And you can tell we're craving it now. Now is the era of these 80s cartoons that are and early 90s, because we have like Darkwing Duck coming out. We have all these cartoon licenses, and it's wonderful because as a child of the 80s, I'm loving it, man. So Thundercats has become really successful based because there was that cartoon that they launched also about 10 years ago, and it just didn't take off as well as they wanted to. I think it lasted one season. I don't even know how well the new cartoon did a couple of years ago that had like that Steven Universe type of style. So it's not like we've had like an incarnation of Thundercats out there. So it's really cool to see it successful as a comic book, because unlike Turtles has had incarnations over years, right?
Yeah.
And then when you
like I know there's this whole 80s thing now, and I think clearly Turtles is part of that, but like the difference between Turtles and everything else, maybe like say Transformers around for a long time, but like it has a whole new life, through Skybound and Darryl Warren Johnson, that son of a bitch, good at everything. Why can't he just be bad at something? Just like help. Just make things easy for some of us.
Yeah, I get it, man.
But I considered that an anomaly because it's Daniel Warren Johnson, But you see all the G.I. Joe stuff since then, and that's all kicked off huge. And so I didn't really think of Thundercats in the same way. I just thought of it as a license, not an 80s cartoon.
Did you grow up with the cartoon?
Yeah, I did. I mean, okay. I'm sure we talked about it at the time, but I'd forgotten a lot of it over the years. But I was of the age where that intro just changed my life, and I had all the toys and everything. But for some reason, I just didn't think I had forgotten how long it had been since there had been an interpretation. Or like even the newer cartoon, I think some people hated it, some people loved it, but it was very different. And so was the 2011 cartoon. It was like a whole new, like a strikingly different interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas ours is like, it's very close to the original cartoon. I think some people got confused and thought that it was like, it like was a continuation of the cartoon or something, but it is a reboot for like more modern sensibilities, but it is still quite close to the original material. Whereas I think the other interpretations are quite different. So I think that's probably why you have a lot of the old school fans are into it, because it's like a slightly different version from what they would have remembered originally, not like a completely different version. And I hadn't put it in the same bracket as these kind of 80s-esque successful reboots, which partly I don't like, because I don't think it's great that all the enthusiasm for comics is in reboots of stuff from when we were kids. I'd like to see some of it in more original stuff, but at the same time, it's actually really nice to be part of something where there's such huge enthusiasm. Like, there's so many people who are like delighted about this Thundercats book and are hugely into it, and I have to kind of like it's nice to be associated with something nice and positive and exciting in comics, because yourself, there's so much like nitpicking and doom and gloom about so much stuff, which some of it's completely appropriate, but it does get a bit tiring after a while. So what I'm hoping is that with all this enthusiasm and excitement, and we're delivering a really good book, that's something positive. I'm not saying we're saving the industry or anything, but anything like that at all. But just with like all those books I mentioned, the G.I. Joe and the Transformers, like they're all great. So it's not like they're just selling because they're new properties. I think also, with credit to everybody who's doing those things, they're treating them like they're the best thing there is. The Transformers does not seem cheap. You're putting great talent behind it and telling great stories. And I think that is also, I think the sales is there because of fan expectation, but you give them something great. I think that's the rocket fuel that can set a book, firing like a rocket. And I'm hoping Thundercats is the same.
Well, having read your Thundercats issues, this is a complete compliment to you, and why I think it's clicking with people. You're writing the stories as if you remember the stories being as a kid. And when we're kids, these stories are more grand than what they really are. When I was a kid, Transformer stories to me were the greatest stories ever. Going back and rewatching them as an adult, even in my 20s, or I've rewatched those so many times. There's a lot of nostalgia there. Some of those stories, with the exception of J. Michael Straczynski stories or a couple of others here and there, are pretty awful. And the same thing can be said about Thundercats. Thundercats, the cartoon, a lot of nostalgia.
How dare you?
Oh, I'm talking
dare
about
you? How dare you speak ill of the cartoon? No, I'm just kidding. No, it's
22 minutes of a commercial for hey, and I was all about all those characters.
But you know what, actually, because I did go back, I watched a good few of the original episodes of the cartoon. Not too much. I kind of wanted to just get a feel for it again. And it's actually, I'd say it wasn't really a good ad for toys, because there wasn't really, outside of the main characters.
At first, yeah, they wanted to have a deep story, and it was really cool that they stood out like that. But then later on, as the seasons, well, I guess mainly in season 2,
well, yeah, there's other.
They're like, here's a new wave of toys. Obviously, this guy is a recolored version of Tiger, and we need.
I don't know what you're talking about, Bengali.
So my compliment is that I like that. I like the fact that you're writing it as an adult in the way that you saw these stories as a kid. And I think that's the big key element to a lot of these particular comics, especially when you're talking about this type of IP that were toys and cartoons, when we were kids. I think that's the key to making it a success. And you figured it out. And it is very important. And why it's I'm sure you saw issue number 1. Hell yes, it's sold well. But just like every other creator, you look at the sales of 2, 3, and 4, you're like, come on.
Well, to be fair, I wasn't expecting anything with issue 1, so I was just pleasantly surprised. But then, I had written a new character into the book for story reasons, and then that ended up being a whole marketing thing where I didn't realize. Like, I talked to a retailer friend of mine, and he said, "Wait, there's a new Thundercat?" I'm like, "Yeah, in issue 2." And they're like, "Okay, better up the orders on that one." I was like, "What?" I wasn't thinking about it from like a speculator point of view or anything, So issue 2 actually did brilliantly, much better than a regular issue 2 would. And I don't know what the numbers are now, but like they're healthy enough to keep going. But the difference was when I finished issue 1, I didn't have much expectations, just beyond making the best book we could make.
Yeah.
And then we figured out what the sales were. I did get a little bit, I was writing issue 4, I did get a little bit scared because I'm like, oh crap. Because I'm wrapping up the story that people have just started reading.
As a writer, do you think like that? Oh man, if it gets canceled now, do I wrap up some loose ends in issue 6 or 12?
Well, the opposite, because I knew that's not going to happen. Like every other book, like I did Time Before Time, that ended up going 28 issues, but we didn't know we'd get past issue 6.
That's awesome. That went 28 issues, and you thought it was going
to brilliant. Old Dog is different. I'm trying to like keep that going in a different way. But Thundercats is different in that, like, or Alien. I knew I had 10 issues, and maybe more, but like 10 was was given to work with. Thundercats is different, where I thought it was 12 or 15, and now it's at least 25, which means I can seed things that, like, there's some stuff I seeded that I think that I'm actually, because I'm reworking the 3rd arc now, because that was going to be the end, and now it's not. So I'm having to, I'm instead of like delivering on the stuff I was seeding, I now need to seed more stuff to come for the 2nd year, because we're kind of working out the 2nd year of the book around now. Actually haven't had that problem, whereas I safely know that I have at least another 12 to 20 issues left.
You mentioned 25 issues. It's pretty good size for a hardcover, Declan. Just saying.
I'm pretty sure that'll definitely, like, I was talking to I don't think I'm spoiling anything here, but like I was talking to Nick Barucci, and he was like, yeah, if we get 25, don't do a hardcover. I'm like, yeah, savage. And they do nice hardcovers. I did a James Bond issue for Dynamite once, and like they collected all the one shots, and it's a really nice hardcover. So, I'm not gonna lie, like, because if an Image book, I can't really afford to do a hardcover because they are expensive. But if Dynamite want to make a hardcover Thundercats, that's fine by me.
That's right.
I can see you reviewing it now in 2 years' time.
2 years time. Well, you know, selfishly, I want the book to keep going. So a 50-issue Thundercats omnibus, though. Now we're talking.
Well, that's it. Like I said, it's at least 25 issues. So
that's wonderful.
If things keep going strong, and like I said, we've got more stuff coming out where, you know, we'll have a Thunderverse that, if we do it right, will build out quite naturally and organically. Like, you know, there aren't, you know, we're not doing miniseries of every single character. You know, we did Chitara, but what comes next, you're not going to expect. I don't think. Actually, no, there's no way you could expect what's coming next. And there's other ancillary stuff that we can do, but like I feel like what we're doing is we're naturally building out a line in a way where it doesn't feel like we're just kind of cashing in. But if you have the prime Thundercats book going, then you can always have stuff kind of seed out of it, you know. So the way I've kind of talked to Nate Cosby, the editor, about it is like, if Thundercats is Uncanny X-Men, then you can do things like X-Force or Phoenix, or, you know, things like that. So that's my feeling behind it.
All right, hear me out, Declan. Mm-hmm. All right, this is off the record. I know we're live. It's off the record. I need to talk to Nick. We need to get Nick in here. Hear me out. Space Thundercats, Silverhawks. Water Thundercats, Tiger Sharks. Those were cartoons in the 80s and have very, very similar intros. Actually, the intros were done by the same animation studio. And just saying, they could coexist in the Thunderverse.
It was like the first stuff that was asked when Thundercats, when the sales for Thundercats came out. They're like, "What about Silverhawks?" And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
You guys didn't get Silverhawks?
Tiger Sharks, I didn't know about, but once I looked up Silverhawks, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember."
Yeah, right.
Remember the intro, but I do not remember the cartoon at all. But like,
Tiger Shark was part of an anthology cartoon series called the Comic Strip. But I mean, you could tell right away. They were like, okay, these dudes, they turn into water creatures, and the opening is very, very Thundercat-y. I love it. I love those.
I mean, I think that sounds cool, but I think there's probably licensing issues there that I don't know about. But look, who knows, you know? But I would say, you know, if anything's going to happen, I would be reading Thundercats, because if there's any sign of something like that happening, then it'll be in that book.
Which is the ongoing Thundercat series.
Thundercats. Not which was an issue 7 is out this week. Yeah, so tomorrow, I think.
Nice. That's awesome. Congratulations, man. That's great.
Yeah.
I love
I can't believe it's probably issue 7.
I know. We just talked like before the first issue came out. All right. Now we need to talk about a couple things. The first thing is, tell me about this Mystique book. I saw your name attached to it when they were announcing titles from the Ashes, and then there were rumors that Mystique was going to be one of them. I'm like, cool. She's a very interesting character. A lot has changed since the last time she had an ongoing series. That who was it? Brian K. Vaughan, and then eventually it was Sean McKeever that wrapped it up, because Brian K. Vaughan went, "See y'all later. I'm doing my creator-owned stuff." And Sean McKeever's like, "I'll take over."
And you know, whatever happened there.
He came running back from Hollywood. He's like, those Hollywood people are crazy. I want to write comics again.
But actually, I met Brian K. Vaughan at New York Comic Con last year, and I was, you know, Mystique I was working on the early draft, and he said, "Oh, what are you working on next?" And I just said, "I'm ripping you off." But it was very intimidating, because how do you? I mean, that was a great you know, series, Mystique, and how do you do a book that Brian K. Vaughan did and not be crap? So
tell me about the process of that. Was that pitched to you? Did somebody approach you and go, "You heard of Mystique? You want to write her?" Or was it you I got a Mystique story?
No, when I heard Tom Brevoort was taking over the X-Men office, I went to him, cap in hand, going, "Please, sir, I'd like to do some X-Men."
I love it.
Because I'm a massive X-Men fan, and I was like, I felt like such a dipshit, like just going like, "Look, you know, if you have any X-Men books going," and I apologized for coming to him like that, but no, he was really cool about it. He said, I had no idea you were a big X-Men fan, so it's good to know. And then they came back to me with some options. Yeah, one of them was Mystique. There was a couple of others too, and I was talking to a friend of mine about.
Give me a little bit of a hint as to what the others were, just out of curiosity.
I can't because somebody else is doing those books, and it would be fair to me.
I didn't know if they had been announced already or not.
One has, one hasn't. But yeah, I don't want to make it. I wouldn't like to hear somebody else was offered Mystique before me.
Right. I just thought it was like, here's a list of characters we have, and you can choose from 3.
Oh no, Tom had very specific book characters and what the books were. So one was one book and another one was Mystique as a spy book.
So they were going to happen regardless.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. So it's not like I pitched a Mystique. I just told Tom what type of stuff I'd like to do. And I was kind of itching for like maybe an X Factor type thing, like a strike team. I think I'd mentioned Uncanny X-Force. Was a book I loved. I'd love to do something like that. So they came back with those options, and I was thinking about Mystique, and a friend of mine said, "You have to do Mystique," and I said, "Why?" He's like, "Because you can draw whoever you want."
Yeah,
like, oh, yeah.
That's a good point. That was
that. and like also, I think at first I thought I shouldn't do it because it's similar to Old Dog. It's a super espionage book. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this, like the similar thing I was doing at Image, but then I realized, well, actually, that might even help.
That would help.
Create our own book.
Look at Rick Remender. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no way to know if there's no way to know if that'll work for sure. But if a superhero espionage book at Marvel can help sell a superhero espionage book I'm already doing at Image, then win-win.
Absolutely.
So it's something I would like to do anyway, and yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm doing. And basically, the story is that after Krakoa has ended and all the mutants are basically kind of like all over the place, Nick Fury is kind of like, Mystique is actually very dangerous and I feel like we should be keeping an eye on her, and when he starts to, it blows up in his face. So it's kind of a cat and mouse story with Nick Fury trying to hunt down Mystique, who has her own secret mission that we don't quite know what it is yet. And in the process I get to just kind of draw, like, in issue 1, she turns into Sabretooth because I want to draw Sabretooth. And also you don't need to go up the chain with the editors too, because it's Mystique. Like it's if I want to draw, say, Sabretooth, I'd have to ask the editors, hey, what's Sabretooth doing now? And then you find out he's doing something over here, so you can't use him. But because it's Mystique, I can literally just draw whoever because it's her and she can just look like whoever she wants. So I get to have this kind of from a mature creator standpoint, I get to write this interesting espionage story, and it's like all the like twists and turns. But as an X-Men fanboy, I can just like draw Wolverine in the Team X outfit because it doesn't matter, So things like that. So I'm getting to have my cake and eat it with this book.
Whose idea was it for you to draw this?
It was Darren Shan was the editor, who Tom paired me with. And originally I was just talking about writing. Originally it was just going to be me writing an X-Men book. But I said to Darren that, look, X-Men books need to be cool. Like, Generation X had Bachalo, X-Men had Kubert and Pacheco, and like it's not just good artists on X-Men books. Like you can have very, very good artists on Avengers, whoever else it is, but on X-Men they've got to be cool. There needs to be a cool edge. And Darren did a great job of appealing to my ego when he said, well, if you're thinking about cool artists, who's better than Declan Shalvey? And I'm like, you son of a bitch, I'll do it.
It's hard to say no to somebody that just compliments.
Yeah, because I drew some of the Alien arc, the second Alien arc that I wrote. When I finished Old Dog Volume 1, I was pretty tired. So the opportunity to just like draw some Alien, I'm like, yeah, that'll be fun. And my plan was to go back to Old Dog after that, but then the Mystique stuff popped up, and yeah, it was a choice of, do I delay Old Dog for a chunk of a year in order to do a Marvel thing? But like, who gets to write and draw an X-Men book? Like, fucking very few people. I saw it as such a rare opportunity, and also, like, again, as it happens, was a similar genre to my own book anyway. So I was like, it's really win-win. Like, there's no downside to this, Like I win either way. I win by doing the book either way. So yeah, so it was a very easy choice. And and like got to design a new costume for her, and just like I think I pitched this to Marvel as me getting to do Vision as part of the X-Men line, like like Tom King and Gabriel Walter's Vision, like a wonderful character piece within a larger line, which was Marvel Now, I think, at the time. So my feeling is I get to do a book like that within the X-Men From the Ashes launch, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, because if I was in,
it sounds very pretentious. I know. I sound like a pretentious
not at
waiver,
all. Because if I was in your shoes, I'd be the same way. Hey, I'd like to write this X-Men story, and then the editor saying, "How about you draw it too?" Hell yes. Forget I'm writing 3 or 4 other stories. I can do it.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, because I think I can't remember the timeline now. Because no, that was in the works already, but I hadn't started by the time Thundercats popped up. But no, it's been like I'm very lucky. I basically get to do a take on a property like Thundercats, my own take with a great artist like Drew Moss. I get to do my take on Mystique that I'm writing and drawing, and I get to do my take now on Terminator with a great artist. So in all 3 projects, I'm getting to do kind of like, for lack of a better phrase, like a creative vision, whatever.
A Shalvey verse, if you will.
Yeah, sure. It's not as cool as Thunderverse, but no, but like
a cool ring to it. Okay, so you segue
where someone goes like, "Hey, what would you do with this?" I got to do with Alien, and I got so that's where I am in my career, in a strange place where someone's going, "Hey, what do you want to do with this?"
You're literally playing with my toys, you lucky bastard. You're playing with my toys that I grew up with, and I love it, man. That's so awesome. Okay, so you segued into this, so let's talk about Terminator. Tell me about this series. When does it take place? In the order of Terminator, what are we talking about here? In who's
okay? Well, so it's Luke Sparrow is the artist, and he is fantastic. He's done a story, just to call back to the Old Dog anthology that's out. He did a story for that, and he did such a great job on it. That's when it was around then when this project was offered to me by Nick Barucci, and I was thinking if he could draw it, I think we'd have a really cool, moody book in the vein of the original film. And I have to kind of probably undercut a lot of your questions in that the book is specifically within the continuity of the first film.
Okay.
So because I'm saying that now because every question I get is all about like what happens afterwards after Terminator 2, blah blah blah. I'm like, no, we're actively not dealing with any of that because we can't. But I also don't mind that because I think that people always go there with the Terminator license anyway. They want to know what happens after 2 and then 3, and they go forward with it. Whereas I think, having rewatched the original film, it's such a great core concept of a murder robot coming to kill you, and you have to find it's kind of like a slasher. That's the concept. Like the lore of the future and all that stuff is secondary to this woman who is she was just a bartender. What was she? She wasn't even a bartender. She was a waitress. And this creature from the future is coming to destroy her no matter what. Like that is, that's the story, and you can take that and do so much with it. So the way we're doing the book is it's essentially what done in 1 issues, where every issue Terminator goes back to a certain point in time to terminate someone. And every issue it'll be a new scenario, a new person. So the first issue, so the first issue takes place like 10 years ago, after the War of the Machines. It's like 2014. Sorry, I can't remember. It's up my head now. It's like 2014.
It's crazy that we're living past Judgment Day.
See, that's it. Like Judgment Day happens when it happens, so there's no point in trying to write around it. Like, let's just accept the fact it's happened.
All right, Terminator.
So I'd move on.
3, I think Terminator 3 was the one that stated, "Oh, it's going to happen no matter what. We can't stop."
Yeah, which I'm actually on board with, because we actually kind of did something similar with Time Before Time, where we're like, you can't change time, and it's. I think a lot of people are trying to apply Back to the Future rules to Terminator, but like, the whole concept of it is that. like it's one suits one franchise and one doesn't necessarily suit the other. So we're like, in our world it has happened, and yeah, issue 1 opens with an elderly couple who basically managed to live a life outside of the war of the machines. One of them's fishing, and then out of the water comes a man who has been half eaten by algae, and we realize what he really is, and how's an elderly couple going to stand up against a Terminator? Probably not very well. So that's kind of that's the core idea of the first issue. Like two elderly people who couldn't possibly stop a Terminator have to try stop a Terminator, and it doesn't go well. Second issue will be in Vietnam War, and I don't want to say more beyond that, but this just goes to show you that, like, we're going to go forward and back with the core mission of the Terminator being to terminate someone, but from that will come engaging, personal stories, which I think is that's what the Terminator is at a core. It's about humans trying to survive in the face of certain death, and I think that's what's interesting about the core franchise. So yeah, I want to lean into that with these kind of like self-contained stories that do have a connection. I don't want to say what it is, because that's, you have to keep reading the series to see what that is. But like, so it's not, well, they are done in ones in different time periods. There is connective tissue that will present itself.
And the Terminator issue 1 is coming out in October, correct?
Yes, I think it's October 8th, I think.
Okay. I said October because sometimes, you can't help. Things happen, delays, printers. Issues.
Oh, yeah, no, as far as I know, yeah, it's down for October 8th. I think Mystique is out the following week. That's why I'm aware.
What are you doing talking to me? You should be writing and drawing, man.
I really should, yeah. I just finished writing issue 11 of Thundercats, and now I have to write the next issue of Mystique, because that's the one thing is you always want to make sure that artists have scripts to work on. And I realized that I'm one of those artists. I can't draw unless the stupid writer has the second thing done.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Do you find the Mystique script easier to write because you're the artist? So you're like, oh, I knew what he meant. I mean, I knew what I meant by this. I'll draw it without having to actually write out everything. Or do you still have to write out everything because you're either a professional or an editor has to approve it? Like, how does that
the latter? I write everything. I mean, even with Old Dog, I write everything out.
That's awesome.
I think well, it's just the way my brain works, to be honest. When you're an artist and you're taking a script and drawing it out, there's a kind of a puzzle box there, which is really interesting. That's the most fun part of comics, is taking a script and making it work visually. And I was worried when I started writing that I'd lose the best bit, but then I realized, no, actually, that stage just moves into the writing. The puzzle box starts with the writing, and then it flows into the layouts, and that's quite satisfying. So, but as a result, the stuff I can work out the script by like moving a paragraph or a sentence around, rather than having to move a panel that I've drawn, and then so I can problem solve in the script first, and then it seed into the layouts, rather than me trying to problem solve in the layouts and fix things that aren't working in a script. So the process is actually exactly the same whether I'm writing it or writing and drawing it, except I probably, with say Old Dog, by the time I'm drawing it, I probably tweak it maybe 10%. Maybe there's something I'm like, oh, well, I could just move this and that works, and I don't have to ask anybody. With Mystique, it's a little difficult actually, because sometimes I think I'll forget to put something in the script because it's in my head. And the editor will be like, oh, well, how does this going to work? And I have to be, oh, no, it's because of X, Y, and Z. Actually, he's catching holes, but the thing is I actually have them figured out in my head, but I didn't put them in the script. So sometimes I have that problem where I'm not putting it all down. But again, it's good to have an editor to ask those questions, because he doesn't know that I have it figured out. That could have been a mistake if he hadn't caught it.
Okay.
So it's there's just a little, maybe a 10% element of that working on Mystique with Darren.
And when
and he'll come back with stuff too. Like I've written issue 3 now, and and I entered a certain way, and he came back with a suggestion. Like he said, he asked like, why is this like this? And I was like, well, this is what I was thinking. And he's like, that's cool. But what if this happened? And I read it. I'm like, actually, that is cool. I'll go with that. So there is a back and forth with the editor. I mean, I don't want a huge back and forth with the editor because I wanted to get fucking drawing. It's like we can labor over stuff and ultimately end back exactly where we started. And I could have started. I could be 3 pages in by now. But in general, I think I'm working with a good editor who, when he asks questions, they're good questions to ask. And if I don't have an answer, I should have an answer. So it's frustrating from a production point of view because I know I could be moving, but I also want the book to be good. So there's no point like shortcutting that process to make it better just for the sake of like moving faster. So, there's a push and pull there that I think works for the better.
So this is a very, very good question. This isn't going into spoiler territory or actually getting into the details of the Terminator.
Did you just compliment your own question?
No, I'm complimenting Adam's question. See?
Okay. Sorry, Adam. Sorry. I'm trying to keep Omar grounded. I thought I was getting
really
a bit too full of
You've
seen it. That's why I was so surprised.
I had a hell of a running streak of good questions already, and I think it's time now for the chat to chime in. How many issues of Terminator are we planned so far?
10 issues. At the moment, it's a 10-issue series. So that's all I'm signed up for at the moment. I don't know if we'll go past that or not. But I like the idea of just kind of planning the whole thing and executing it as a whole project. I don't think I could do another ongoing while doing Thundercats at the same time. Like 2 ongoings would be a lot for me. So this will basically be a year's run on the book.
So 10 issues. Okay, yeah. So Thundercats takes priority. Interesting. Because if I were to be asked, Umar, you can write Thundercats or Terminator. That's a tough one, man. That's a tough one.
Yeah, but I would, if I had to pick, I'd pick Thundercats only because I've already
oh, you're deep into the Thunderverse.
No, it's just an obligation. I agreed to that first. So, if I liked Terminator more, I don't think that's a factor. I'm very of the mind of like, if I say I'll do something, I'll do something. So, and I have done all this work on Thundercats, and it would feel weird to just step off it for another book. I think
I got you.
It'd take a lot for me to leave Thundercats, because I feel all the work that's gone into it. That means something. But because I was reticent to take Terminator because of my time, and I was like, I don't know if I have the time to do this. But it was such a cool prospect, and if it's a year, then that I can work it on for a year without signing myself up for a much larger obligation. Like maybe the book will go on and I'll stay on, but at least at the moment I know what it is, so I can schedule my year that way and tell a concise story.
But my question would be that I know you're not going to be able to answer is, what could come around that you're like, yeah, I'll drop what I'm doing to do that. That's such a tough question to answer because you don't want to throw shade at anything you're working on right now. But I think every creator has a dream project that they've been waiting on, and maybe you don't even know what it is yet.
Oh, I know what it is.
Oh, you know what it is?
Yeah. Got 2 of them, baby. Batman and Daredevil. Those are my
Damn, how have you not been on Daredevil? Marvel had you at Moon Knight. Should have shifted you over.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't want to just work on Daredevil. I want to write and draw a Daredevil story, and I want to write and draw a Batman story.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and I think if I can do it Mystique, then why not? But also Old Dog is my bucket list book too. So I'm very fortunate that whatever happens, I can just do more Old Dog. But I would say ultimately a huge chunk of my year is going to be writing and drawing a book, and so there's only so much I can write outside of that. So the way I see it, I'm writing, say, the book that I write and draw at the moment is Mystique, then it'll change back to Old Dog or some, something else. And I kind of write 2 other books. One of them is Thundercats, so I'm kind of obligated on that one. Terminator is the third, so I can't really take anything else until I either take a break on drawing, which I don't want to do, because that's it. The weird thing, man, is I could probably just be writing now. I could probably be a full-time writer and not have to, because I'm drawing covers to all the books as well. So, I could just not draw storytelling pages, but I also know what would happen to me if I didn't. I'd go nuts. I like covers a lot and I like writing a lot, but my true love is storytelling. So, I wouldn't be able to kind of quit that for too long. So yeah, so I've realized where I'm. Well, my problem is I've been doing I've had 4 projects. I think 3 is. I've had 4. 3 is probably where I'm much better off. But at the moment, I've got 3, and then like the anthology was a bit of a 4th one. And I want to start a new creator owned, so that's going to be a bit of a 4th one. So that's, if I go to 5, I'll die. And ideally, I don't want a full 4th one. I kind of need to keep, 3.5 is kind of where I'm at.
Okay. And see, Omar's the most humble person he knows. Thank you, Adam. I am the most humble person I know. I appreciate that.
Very humble of you to say that.
It's my humbling ways. I can't help myself. No one has really written and drawn Daredevil since Miller, I think. It'd be nice to see that for a change. I'm trying to think of another writer or artist. Maybe, David Mack created Echo, right? Like it was during.
Yeah, I remember Lee Weeks did a miniseries. I think it was something nice. So I remember Set You in the Snow. But yeah, I guess there's not that many. Like I could. I'm not putting myself up for these jobs because it's not for me to say, but I could write Daredevil. I'd love to do that, but my dream is to write and draw it. So that would be a different thing. I wouldn't be able to write and draw the main series like Frank Miller did. I'm not capable of it. Even if I wasn't writing anything else, I couldn't I couldn't write and draw a monthly book. I just don't have that much in the tank. But I could do like a maxi series or a mini series. That's what I'd love to do. Or a Batman thing too, because I drew a Batman short for backup stories for All-Star Batman, but I've never gotten to I'd love to do a 6-issue, 12-issue Batman things. Those are the dream things. But the weird thing is that they're possible. If you asked me this 10 years ago, I'd be like, that's my dream, but it'll never happen. Now I'm in a place where it's my dream and it's like 60% possible it could happen rather than 0.
That's better than 0. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is better than 0. Yeah. And especially I think if I am getting to do these things like, my take on Alien or Thundercats or a Terminator now, what I hope is that if I'm given something like that, what I deliver is a really good book. And I'm really like Thundercats is great, but it was a little outside my comfort zone in that it was writing kind of like all age superhero stuff, which wasn't really what my goal was, but it was great to do and I really enjoy it. It's nice to do something that's not like dark and grim and miserable and violent. But that is where my wheelhouse is. So getting offered like Terminator, I think is way up more up my alley than say Thundercats was as a to have a go on. But I'm really enjoying Thundercats. But it's nice to get something like Terminator, because it's like putting a glove on. I'm like, this is dark, emotional, tough, moody, and if I just get the right artist, creative team, and man, do I have it it's Luke Sparrow is drawing it and an Irish artist, Colin Craker, is coloring it, and the two of them together, it's the most beautiful Terminator comic I've ever seen, and that's what I'm really happy about. Is I want to deliver a licensed book that looks so much better than a licensed book, like what Daniel Warren Johnson's done on Transformers. Is like, you think you know what a Transformers book is, and then you open it up and it looks like that. That's what I love about comics. My favorite comics are the ones where you're like, I think I know what this is, and you open it up and it's so much better than what you think it's going to be. And that's what I'm trying to do with Terminator. And just on issue 1, I think I've done it. or well, I've done it. Actually, the artist did it. I just wrote the words.
You both did it because I mean, without a
yeah, sure.
as you know, it's a creative effort. Absolutely. So speaking of creative effort, I did hear my buddy Sal Crivelli is doing some backup stories for Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, man. And will these backup stories tie into the book then?
No, not really. Like, I want Sam to be able to tell his own story, just as long as it doesn't kind of undercut what we're doing with the main story.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing a story that will be broken up across the first 5 issues, which is tough because it's basically 2 pages an issue, which isn't a lot to work with. So I think he's got a challenge in front of him. But when it'll be collected, it'll be its own 10-page story that will work within what me and Luke are doing. So because I didn't want it to work against it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want it to be. I want to be something that didn't fit within the book, because I'd hate like a comic where you're reading a story and then the end of it is something completely different. You're like, what the hell is it? So I wanted to fit in an aesthetic way. So we have actually is Colin Craker, who's coloring Luke, is going to be coloring and drawing Sal's story.
Okay.
So there's still even though it'll be a different artist.
Like
exactly, yeah. So I think it'll still fit in an organic way. But well, yeah, I feel bad for Sal because he's got a challenge of like telling his story in 2-page increments, which is very tough. So but he came with some pitches, and I felt bad I had to shoot like a couple of them down because he was doing exactly what I would do if I just got to do one Terminator story. But I just, as I'd said to him, it's like, I feel what you're doing is going to undercut what we're building towards. So it needs to be something that kind of fits within it. So it isn't necessarily part of my story, but it works within it because what we're doing in the story are different stories every issue, So I think it'll fit quite nicely in the trade.
Excellent. Trade, you say? How about a Judge Dredd story, Declan?
If I was asked, I'd love to do a Judge Dredd story. With a lot of people on this side of the Atlantic, like traditionally would have started at 2000 AD and then got picked up and go to America. But that didn't happen with me. I kind of didn't do any. I just went straight to America pretty much. But so I haven't been asked. But if I was asked, I'd love to do one 100%. But no one's ever asked. I've done a cover for Judge Dredd, but that's it.
What's interesting is that Sean Gordon Murphy told me the same thing. And I know a couple of editors in 2000 AD.
I don't know this for sure, but I think maybe the editor doesn't like hiring mainstream comics guys because it might be different working with them. I don't know. But it is more unusual for me, I think, because I actually come from the other side. Like I did have a portfolio review with Matt Smith one time, and he ripped me a new one, but he was right. But yeah, I just don't. It's weirdly, I started in the UK. I did a lot of UK small press stuff, but I didn't break in there and then move over. So I'm guessing maybe I'm seen as an American artist. Maybe look, I don't know.
With a name like Declan Shalvey,
that's it. Yeah, the most American it could possibly be.
The most American name.
Look, I could be talking out of my arse. I really don't know, but I am a little bit like, I'm not going to go looking for it, but if they come my way, I would be really cool to do. But I'm probably being a bit of a prat about it. But I was very happy to be asked to do the cover. Like that was great. I loved doing the cover. It was really cool fun. But yeah, look, I'm so busy. Like I'm very thankfully, I'm not in a position where I'm like looking for work. If I was looking for work, I probably would be all of a sudden. You're 2000, please.
You're at the point where you have to start turning people down and saying no. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a freaking brain aneurysm if I keep writing.
That's it. Yeah, I need to not have a job for a while. That would. Although I'd panic if I didn't.
A break is good. I think a good mental break is good for everybody. I say that, and
I saw somebody mention Punisher Max with Garth Ennis. I love that. I mean, my favorite comics are Gart's with Goran Parlov, but like, but I'd also feel like such a fraud because I am no Goran Parlov. I'd prefer to see Goran Parlov do those books than me. Also, I did do kind of a Punisher Max book, but it never got published. So,
what's that?
Oh yeah, like I did a Punisher book with Ed Brisson that didn't get published.
What happened?
COVID, just all whatever happened. It was a 5-issue
when you said
series.
You did how many did you do? It was a 5-issue.
I did four of the 5 issues were finished. But COVID happened, and then everything got shut down, and then it never kind of came back afterwards. So,
so wait, when you said you were drawing these at the time?
Yeah, Ed Brisson was writing it, and I had he'd written the whole thing, and I'd drawn 4, so I just had to draw one more issue, and it would have been done. I think the week COVID happened, or the shutdown happened, was the week the book was coming out.
Damn, I don't remember that one. I don't, well, because I do solicitations for collected editions, so there wouldn't have been.
They never even got to single.
Yeah, damn, man, that sucks. Because
yeah. So I don't think I'd do another Punisher book. Having done one that didn't come out, like not out of sourness or anything. Just my enthusiasm would be kind of shot. I'd wanted to finish that before I did anything else.
Okay. Judge Dredd, Punisher, but your own take on Punisher. I like that. If you could write and draw a DC crossover, what characters would you choose? DC versus Marvel? Is this what you're asking? Comics for Life? I'm assuming Daredevil versus Batman.
I'm assuming because it's DC Marvel crossover, because what else would be crossing over with? The obvious one would be Batman, Daredevil. That would be class. That would be really cool. Yeah, I feel bad. I did the X-Men panel at San Diego Comic Con a couple of weeks ago, and there was a question going, what other X-Men would you like to work on? And everybody on the panel, like Jackson, Lanzig, and Gail Simone, they all had like really interesting mutants. And I was just like, Wolverine.
Yeah, that's the answer though, man.
Yeah, okay, Banshee, sure, but if I had to really pick, it would be Wolverine, So I'm very basic. I like the meat and potatoes. So yeah, it probably would be Batman and Daredevil.
That is not a basic man's answer. That is the right answer.
Yeah. It's a cool guy's answer.
Absolutely.
So I wish I had a more interesting, but like, man, how cool would it be to draw that? That'd be savage.
I know this is a Thundercats discussion right now, but please release a Time Before Time compendium. The entire story just reads brilliantly as one go. You were talking about how, we were talking about hardcovers that Dynamite would love to do them. But you mentioned something a little bit earlier that I've talked to other creators about, and that is hardcover collections when published over at Image Comics. And sometimes that has to do with sales of trade paperbacks. Sometimes it is, a conversation between the creators and Image themselves. A compendium would be cool. I mean, if you don't want to go the route of hardcovers, which is the whole book in a trade paperback, like a thick trade, which is what Rick Remender has been doing, and Brian K. Vaughan with Saga. We've got Jeff Lemire's, I think Descender is coming out in that format too.
I think so, yeah.
So I mean, something new.
It's still not feasible because the difference between those guys and me is that I do not sell as much as those guys. It's an incredibly boring answer, but in order to do a compendium, we need to be like, we've sold through a lot of the first volume, but then you sell less of the second, and then the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and now the sixth one is just going to print. You need to sell through on the regular trades before you can consider doing another type. Now, sorry, I'm not. These aren't like rules handed down from heaven. It's just practical information, because what if there is a compendium, that means we're spending more money printing a book when we haven't made money back on previously printed versions of the book. If that makes sense. So we've made money on the first and second probably, but we haven't made money on the third and fourth and fifth. I mean, sorry, this isn't factual. I'm just roughly spitballing here.
Right, of course.
We probably made money on the third one, but say fourth one we haven't, and fifth one we probably haven't, because there's paper costs, there's printing costs, there's shipping and distribution. So those are all costs for every single book. So if the book hasn't sold through, we haven't made a profit on them. So if we made a compendium, that's going to compete with all the money that we've already spent printing all those other editions. So in order for a compendium to make sense, we would need to sell through on all the other volumes. And then if they're all sell out, then we're like, okay, well, we made our money on those. Now we can afford to do a compendium, which would cost money and it would take a while to make money on that back. But if we made one now, we'd just be going into the red more and more and more. We're in the red at the moment, not because the book isn't selling. It's just most books are in the red until they're out for a while and the money comes in and you get paid for what you've already spent. That makes sense. So any other version of the book other than the trade would compete with the trade. And what we need to do, if we're ever going to consider doing like a hardcover or a compendium, is to sell the books that already exist. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense to me, but I want to go back to something you just said, because I feel like this is a very important topic to talk about. You said we're in the red right now. When you say we're in the red, are you talking about yourself and the other creators that worked on the book, or are you talking about Image themselves showing you a chart saying this is where you need to be with sales and this is where we are right now? Like,
yeah, it's a bit more complicated because me and Rory paid everybody, so
okay,
everybody got paid, so they're all fine. You know, they got paid a page rate. Me and Rory funded the book. Like, we pitched it to Image right like when the pandemic was kind of, and when things were opening up again. So our pitch was like, we'll pay. I think that's it as well. If it's not a slight against Image, but if Image were paying everybody in the book, we probably wouldn't have lasted past 12 issues because they would be losing money. And eventually they'd have to go.
So it was up to you to decide to keep continuing the series.
Yeah, it was up to me and Rory to go, can we keep the book going? So me and Rory were co-financing it. And, I could afford to because I'm doing Marvel work. And Rory could afford to because he's like doing Spawn or whatever. And we would make money back, say on volume 1 and then volume 2, but we're putting the money back into the book. So whatever we made on it, say we made money on the first 2 trades, that's going into issue 15, 16. So the book paid for itself until near the end, where the sales got to a point where we weren't making money on the trades anymore. Sorry, on the singles anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Rory to decide, can we afford to keep going? So I think he might correct me now, but I think we got to the stage where at issue by the end of the 4th volume, we were basically breaking even, and we decided, do we end it on the 4th volume now? Or do we kind of keep going and lose money for the last volume to get to where we wanted the story to really end? And that's what we did. So we made the conscious decision to pay out, lose money on the last issues in order to finish the story where we wanted, with the goal that the trades would eventually pay through and cover the money that we spent. Does that make sense?
Dude, that makes perfect sense to me. I guess
there's a difference. Say like Old Dog, Image gave me in advance because they knew it would sell decently. Time Before Time was me co-writing a book that I wasn't drawing. It's much riskier. Rory was unknown, Joe was unknown, but my feeling was if we could at least say we'll finance it, then it's less of a risk for Image and more of a risk for us. But between me and Rory, the risk was divided a little bit more. So, so we did. I'm not saying we haven't made any money on it. We did. We made money on volume 2, 1, 2, 3 now at the stage, I would say. But you don't make money up front basically because all the costs are up front. You'll make them after, and then whatever we made, we put back into the book. So we kind of used the single issues to pay for the rest of the issues, and then the trade money to also then pay when that ran out, if that makes sense. So the stage we're at now is, we'd need the trades to sell through more in order for us to get past our expenses and make a profit again. So it's going to take a while to make a profit again. But again, me and Rory decided, let's just take it on the chin for the last volume, because not all the last volume now. I would say maybe the last 3 issues we made a loss on. I think it's off the top of my head now. So sorry. I'm not remembering exactly. So we definitely took a loss at the end, but that was us going creatively. We want it to get here, so let's just accept that we're not going to make money on the single issues, but we know in the long run we'll make it back.
I know we're about to wrap up, but I found that
I feel like I opened a Pandora's box.
No, because I really feel like that is one of the most important things that we don't really discuss on the channel, because nobody really wants to share the secrets of how this works, right? We as fans are like, okay, we really enjoy, and I'm just using Masum as an example here, that he would love a time before time compendium, but it is a lot more difficult than that, than what we think. Then why is Declan Shalvey not giving me my time before time compendium? It's a lot more difficult and hurdles that you have to jump through than what we think.
As a fan, you have these questions, and then like as somebody who's like behind the curtain, I realize that like a lot of the reasons, like why isn't this artist, why didn't they do the whole book, or why did they get a fill in here, or why isn't this being done in a whatever format?
Mm-hmm.
The answers are generally very basic, like someone got sick, couldn't do it. There wasn't enough money for this, or it's just very. It's never really like a Machiavellian decision. It's always a basic basic numbers thing. I'd love to do a compendium of because now the 6th volume out, it was 28 issues. It's fantastic. I'm so happy we got there, but and I'd love to do all those editions, but we just can't afford to, is the bottom line. The book did well, and I'm very happy with it, but it didn't do as well as a Rick Remender. Like, there's a reason why all those guys do their different versions, is because they can afford to. You can do, like, Saga can do a compendium now because they have all those issues in the can. People are going to buy Saga no matter what. We're not in that rarefied air of a hugely successful series where you have the money to do these different editions. Where we are at the moment is any other edition would compete with what we've already spent money on, and that we need to make money back on before we could ever decide to do something different.
Man, that is so interesting. Like, I love having this conversation. I don't know.
Like, if you think about it, if we did do a compendium, right, that's going to cost thousands, right? Mm-hmm. So that's money that will as regards to the book, will go in the red. How long is it going to take for that to sell if we even make our money back? And let's say we do, but that means people are going to buy the compendium, and they're not going to buy any of the trades that are already out that we haven't. Like I said, we've made profit on the first 3, but like no one's going to buy the 4, 5, and 6, which means we've spent more money to not make money back on what we've already spent. Does that make sense?
No, it makes absolute sense, because a lot of the times, whenever you see collected editions and why isn't it in this format? I mean, even companies like Dynamite has to take and go to a crowdfunding way for books, right? Because not everybody has DC or Marvel type of money that they can just.
True, yeah.
One project leads into the next project, one leads into the next project, and leads into the next project. Especially when it's something like what you just said. I hope it really does open up a lot of people's eyes to just how difficult it is to get these books printed, and why it is important to buy. I get the question all the time: is it important to buy single issues if I'm just going to get the collected edition, trade paperback, or hardcover? I mean, it absolutely is important in the case of something like what we were just talking about. Because
look, the single issues were what kept the book alive. The only reason we could keep going was people were buying the single issues. Now, I'm never going to tell somebody you need to buy the single issues. It's your fault if the book dies because you didn't buy the single issues. People should buy whatever format they want, whatever they want. They should, if they want to read it in trade, they should feel no pressure to buy the single issues. But the brass tacks is the reason the book could go 28 is because people bought the single issues. If they didn't, we wouldn't have gotten as far as we did. And that's, I mean, it's definitely make or break with creator owned, definitely. But even with Marvel and DC stuff, Mystique could go on more issues if it sells brilliantly. Terminator, same. Same thing with Thundercats. You know, it was going to be a year, and now because people bought those issues, and they bought the covers and all that other stuff, the book has a life that can go beyond what it was. And the numbers are way more make or break with the creator owned, definitely, because, you know, like I said, I was paying with that book with Rory in order to let it live. But I'm not going to tell people like, you should have been buying the single issues, man. You know, no, you buy whatever way you want. But in the same way, I can't give it to you in any other volume than it is now, unless all the trade paperbacks sell out. The decision then will be, do we reprint them, right? Because they're sold, which means we'll be in the red again, because that'll be more printing costs on top of, you know, what we've already done. Or do we wait and do a compendium or a hardcover instead? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that decision will be, but we would need to sell through on everything.
Man, this is
case in point. You know, Bog Bodies, a graphic novel I did a few years ago.
Mhm.
I wrote it, and a friend of mine drew it, and it did really well. And we made money on it, and we sold out. So we did a reprint, and now we're in the red because we haven't made the money back on the reprint. Do you know what I mean? Because we spent this much money printing it, right? And then it sold out, and we made this much money, yay! And then we spent this much money reprinting it, and it hasn't sold out. So now, well, we did make money on it. We haven't made. Now we are in the red because we paid more money to reprint, to do a new printing that hasn't sold out. So it's, even though that book is definitely a success, you know, we're not making any more profit because we went back to press. Yeah,
I'll tell you
now,
what.
Had we printed more initially, we wouldn't be in that problem. But
you never know, right? Like, you never know what's going to sell, what isn't.
Before that, I did a book called Savage Town, and we printed more of that, but that hasn't sold through. You know, so Image would be like, well, this book sold this, so we're going to base it on what that did, which is fair enough. Or it didn't sell through, so they printed less. That was their advice, which makes sense. But then that sold through, and now we're in the red. Because like these. I'm like, don't be wrong, I'm not complaining or whining. I'm just like showing like the metrics of doing it creator owned. There's all this other stuff to it,
and I think this is why, you know, a lot of creator owned stuff is going through Zoop or Kickstarter or Indiegogo, because it helps you with that initial payment to the printer, because you're putting money out of your own pocket to print these books. So if somebody wants a hardcover bad enough, they will go to your crowdfund, like whatever book it is that you're trying to get printed, right? And back it. And I think that is the necessity that is there for people. You get to gauge, like, okay, obviously 300 people want this printed. We have enough money to get it printed. I just have to ship it out. Please,
the costs it's all front loaded.
The price of shipping go up between now and then, which could very well happen, and you don't take that into account. So I do think this is a really interesting topic. I love hearing all these behind the scenes stories, because, you know, when we think of Image Comics, that is one of the biggest powerhouses in the publishing world, but they don't back and support everything. Sometimes, like you said, it's up to the creators to do their own funding, and I think that's really interesting, especially if it's a passion project.
Well, I mean, saying that, but like Image do support it in that, like, you know, books are in the red, and they're not coming at my door going, "Hey, give us the money that you owe us." You know what I mean? They're willing to.
Oh, right.
They'll take a risk on a book and let us like try find an audience. You do have that support, but it also means, like, you know, like if I just said, okay, I'm going to do a crowdfunder to do a collection, for all of Time Before Time, I could do that. It's my it's my book. I could do what I want, but I would be kind of screwing Image over, because they've invested in printing all those collections that are in warehouses, or that they're promoting, or that they're, you know, like that would be bad form on my part, because they did take a risk, you know, promoting that book and printing all the different editions and everything else. So I'm not saying that thing can't happen, but I think there's definitely a shelf life you need to give things before you can ever kind of consider that stuff. In 5 years, if like those books have slowly, you know, if you know, they're not selling in a way, I think then it'll be like, well, I'm going to do this new format, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I think, there's a shelf life for that type of stuff.
What an interesting topic, man. I'd love to talk to you just for another hour about that. But let's end it on something good. Terminator, October. Mystique, October. Drawing and writing Mystique at that. You've got Thundercats ongoing. What else is in the works for Declan Shalvey?
Well, there's the Moon Knight project, which is out also in October. There's Time Before Time, Volume 6, which is out in October, and that's collecting all the one-shot issues we did. In between every arc, we did a one-shot, self-contained, that wasn't collected in the trade. So now we've collected all those as basically a bonus trade paperback. So the FOC for that was one day. Covers on all those books. What else? There's something else going on. I can't think. Isn't that enough?
You tell me.
Oh, sorry. And also, sorry, there's the Old Dog Operations anthology one-shot, which has a story by me, by Charles Soule, Gavin Guidry, Chris Sprouse, Matthias Bergara, Leonardo Romero, Dave O'Sullivan, Rory McConville from Time Before Time, Luke Sparrow from Terminator. Like, it's just a great selection of like amazing writers and artists. And the 64-page one-shot for Old Dog. And Old Dog's available. Volume 1's available still for $10. So yeah, I think that's everything.
Okay. Is there anything you haven't announced yet?
No, I think
you're good. You're good. You have said yes to everything, and everything is now in the works. Excellent. And before you go, this is an excellent question, not from me, from Adam again. Where can we find Declan across the internet?
Well, if you go to my website, declanshalvey.com, you can subscribe to my newsletter that I put out every 2 weeks. So everything I'm talking about, I kind of show little peeks, or I discuss how I'm working on them, schedule of what's coming out. And I'm also at Declan Shalvey on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, there you go. You could go and stalk Declan over there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I just want to thank you, man, for all the inside information that you were able to supply. And that's just one case of, one particular book that we're talking about. But I would love to carry this conversation at another time. And
sure, man. I mean, apparently you don't want to talk about this stuff, because yeah, well, there's that. Apparently you don't want to talk about this stuff because, I don't want to make it seem like I'm not a big success, and when you're talking about these things not selling the way you want,
you don't come across like that.
Okay, good.
You come across like a really humble guy that's just really knowledgeable when it comes to these things, and you're trying to make sure that people understand it's not because you are an asshole that you don't want to release the books that you're creating that people
love.
Just
that.
Right. It's more of, there's a lot more to it than, hey, let's get this book printed because people want it and they want more of it in different versions. And I think that is very, very, very clear. I know that that's the way you come across. And so, No, it's not that you're not successful. Obviously, people are getting you to write and draw stories. And I think that's wonderful. Right. That's wonderful. That's a wonderful situation to be in.
Big time. Yeah. And all that stuff we're talking about, it's always like I love making things and I love telling stories, and I'm very grateful I get to do this work for hire stuff. But the creator owned side of it is a whole other set of challenges. And ideally I like to be doing both. So I'm hoping that interest in Terminator and Mystique will send people to Old Dog. And if Old Dog does well, that puts me in a better position to tell more of my own stories. That also, those stories, are auditions for other work. So I'm in a great place where there's a great synergy to the stuff that comes out. So I'm very grateful.
Okay. Well, everybody, go and check out all of Declan's work. It's at Marvel Comics. It's at Image. It's at Dynamite. That's where you can find them across the board. And coming in October, make sure you got those first issues of Mystique and Terminator out there for pre-order. And do you know how many different covers? I know you may not know how many different covers. I know there's cover collectors.
Terminator?
Yeah.
For Terminator, there's actually not that many. I think there's only 4.
Oh, really? Wow, that's a big surprise.
4 or 5. Yeah.
It's
I think they
I couldn't keep up with Thundercats.
Yeah, me either.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Declan. Seriously.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks a million, man.
Get back to writing, man. Get back to writing. What are you even doing?